Oops, I just made a boo-boo. What do we mean by boo-boo? Boo-boo means making a mistake. Do you also make a lot of blunders, boo-boos in your life? Of course. We all make mistakes. Instead, we are all experts at making mistakes. And we make different kind of mistakes. Mistakes while speaking, mistakes while doing something, right? So today in this lesson, we are going to learn different words to talk about mistakes. And these words are not just common words. These are slang words that you would often hear fluent or advanced English speakers using these words. So watch this complete lesson with me. My name is Michelle and you're watching me on Let's Talk. So here we are, and let's start with the first word. As I told you that boo-boo means a mistake, the same way blunder is another word for mistake. But not a very big mistake, a small mistake. We call it blunder. So let's say that James made a mistake in his assignment, but he got a good score in his finals. How would you say that using this word? You would say, James made a blunder in his assignments, but he managed to get a good score in his finals. That's how you will use this word. You could also say, oh, James made a boo-boo in his assignment, which means a very stupid, silly mistake. Okay, now with this we look at the next one, and that is hiccups. Do you know what are hiccups? These strange sounds that come out of your throat when your food is not digested very well. Those are hiccups, and especially you get them after having something spicy. So in our daily lives also, we make a lot of hiccups. Yeah, I mean we make a lot of mistakes. So hiccups is another word for mistakes. A small mistake. Now there is something about hiccups. These are very small mistakes, as I told you, and these mistakes don't affect the final result. I mean, they are not such big mistakes that because of them, the final result will be affected. Let me tell you, you could say that except a few hiccups among the communication in the team, the event was very successful. Which means that there were some problems among the communication within the team, but other than that, the event was successful. So these small mistakes, communication mistakes, didn't really affect the event. This is what it means. Okay, now the next one we have is a slip up. Okay, now this is a special one. This is a kind of mistake that you make while speaking. Okay, speaking. Sorry. Yeah, that was a boo-boo. Speaking. So a mistake while speaking is called a slip-up. Now, how would you use this? Just imagine if you're talking to your girlfriend and you call her by the name of your ex-girlfriend. That's called a slip-up. And to use it in a sentence, you could say that Nancy got so mad at me for calling her by ex's name. And to use this word in that sentence, you could say that Nancy got so mad at me when I slipped up my ex's name while calling her. That's how you will use it. So this is a mistake that you make while speaking. The next one is flub. This is also a mistake while speaking, but this is generally made publicly. All right? So a public mistake while speaking. All right. Think about giving a presentation. So you're giving a presentation and you started the introduction all wrong. So basically, you flubbed the introduction, which means that the introduction was out of order, it was not at all organized, it was all wrong. So you could say that my introduction was flubbed up, which means that you flubbed it up and you disorganized it and jumbled it up. So that's how you use flub. Now let's look at the next one, bombed. Bombed is an unexpected failure or a sudden failure, okay? A sudden or obvious failure. So you could often use this for movies. A movie that has suddenly failed all right, which was not a success, that movie could be bombed. You could say that Leonardo DiCaprio's new movie bombed, which means it was a sudden or an obvious failure. Okay, instead of bombed, you can also use going to the dogs. Now, going to the dogs is used when there is something which is constantly becoming worse. All right, so bombed is something that happens suddenly, but going to the dogs is something which is slowly becoming bad. Okay, slowly becoming bad. So if you think that your country is slowly becoming worse, you could say that I think my country is going to the dogs. And if someone thinks it's not happening, they could tell you, oh, I don't think our country is going to the dogs. It's slowly becoming successful. Instead of dogs, you could also use the word pots. Or you could also say going down the drain. Okay. Now let's look at the next one, which is last ditch effort. So as you can already see, we have this word here, last. If you don't think about ditch, then we are left with two words, and these are last and effort. So when you do the last effort to save something, which means when all options are ruled out and you don't have any more options, that's when you make the last ditch effort, which is also called as last resort. So recently I spilled coffee on my laptop and I made a last ditch effort to save it by taking it to the repairing shop and asking them to give me my hard drive. Okay, which means that it was my last effort or last possibility, last option to save it. So this is how you use last ditch effort for a problem for which you don't have many options, but just the last option. Okay, now the next one we have is in a jam. Well, we've all been a jam, a traffic jam. But here we are talking about a special kind of jam. Not the jam we put over the bread. This jam here means trouble. So this phrase actually means in a trouble, all right? In a jam means in a trouble. And if you want to use it in a sentence, you could say that I can always rely on my brother when I'm in a jam. Not a traffic jam, when I'm in a trouble. That's what it means. Okay, now the next one we have is busted. Busted means when someone is caught doing something wrong. Of course, that's a huge problem, isn't it? So when someone is caught doing something wrong, they are busted. So I recently saw this guy get busted at the airport because he was trying to enter the country through a fake passport, which means that I saw the guy caught doing something wrong. Okay, now with this we move to the next one, let it slide, okay? When you let go of something, which means when you don't punish someone for their mistake, then you let it slide. Let it slide means to not punish someone for their mistake. So if your employee has been coming late to the office for past 3 days and you still are not punishing them, then you could tell them, I'm gonna let it slide for the last time. Now, please don't come late to the office, okay? Which means I'm gonna let it go or I'm not gonna punish you for the last time, okay? Now the next one we have is breakdown. Now this is a very common phrasal verb and you must have heard it with regard to cars, right? So when a car stops working, we don't say that my car stopped working. You say that my car broke down. And to use it in a sentence, of course, you could say that my car broke down on the way to work, which means my car stopped working on the way to work. This is obviously a very huge problem and very difficult to handle. Okay, now the next one we have is snowed under. Think about snow, a heap of snow. If you're under a heap of snow or under a lot of snow, how will you feel? You'll feel loaded, right? Which means you have a lot of weight over your head. The same way, when you have a lot of tasks to complete or when you have lots of work to do, that's the time when you're snowed under, which means lots of work to do. And if you can't meet someone because you have lots of work to do, you would say that, I'm sorry, I can't see you today. I'm snowed under, which means I have a lot of work to do. The next one we have is bogged down. Bogged down means when there's a huge task to complete, okay? Maybe like you have a presentation to give and you're only focusing on one small problem, okay? Like let's say you can't decide where are you going to give the presentation. Now you're constantly thinking about where are you going to give the presentation, but you're not focusing on what you will say. So bogged down means to think about a small detail too much. Now let's look at the last two phrases. These are used when you make a mistake and you accept it. So if you've made a mistake, like let's say that you were supposed to give invitations to people for someone's birthday party, and you wrote an email that the birthday party is on Saturday 5:30 p.m. But then you found out that the birthday party is actually on Sunday. What did you do? You made a huge mistake, right? You made a blunder. Then how will you accept it? You will accept it by saying, I'm sorry, I messed it up, which means I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Another way to accept your mistake is by saying, drop the ball. Do you know baseball? If the player drops the ball in baseball, they make a mistake. That's where this phrase comes from. So if you have made a mistake, you could say that, I'm sorry, I dropped the ball, okay? So this is how you accept your mistakes. And with this, we come to an end of this lesson where today we have learned different informal and slang words to talk about mistakes that we make in our everyday life. I hope you will use all these words to talk about your boo-boos and your blunders, and I really hope that you don't get busted. See you soon with another lesson here on Let's Talk. Till then, you take care. Bye-bye.